Hi, good evening. So I thought I would jump on this evening because I wanted to share some knowledge that I've been learning recently about patterns of change. Now, in NLP, we like to make sense of the world using our five senses. So, how we see, how we hear, how we feel, which is touch as well, how we taste, and how we smell. And once we do that and we absorb that information, we then will make assumptions. We'll distort the information. We might delete the information, and so forth. And then we store it in the back of our mind, and then we make sense of that situation through our map of reality, our map of the world. Now, in NLP, we say the map is not the territory, because the way we think and the way we feel and the way that we take action is all based on our values and our beliefs and how we make sense of the world. So what we've learnt as we've grown up to be shapes part of our values and our reality. So I wanted to go deeper into this and look at more about the reality model. And I've been learning that there are 4 ways of thinking. And these 4 ways of thinking are known as patterns of change. And what we mean by patterns is we see patterns all the time. And the best way to explain that is if you were to go into a room or a building and it was 4 walls and it's all white, there's nothing in there, just a seat. And you were to walk into that room, just yourself, and you would sit down. Now we're programmed to make sense of patterns. That's just who we are. So straight away we'd look up and we'd see all these different lights. There might be different colours, they might be flickering differently, and straight away we'll be using all our senses to try and make sense of what's going on around us, to figure out, is there a pattern there, to help us understand what the reality of the situation is. Now, to make sense in that really easily is every day we see patterns. We see patterns everywhere. For example, traffic lights. We know how to behave when we see 3 different colours going into the different cycles, and we just know what to do. That's a pattern. It's a universal pattern that we all understand across the world. Okay, so just bear with me. So I've been reading Understanding NLP Principles and Practice by Peter Young. Now, I did purchase this book nearly 2 years ago now, and when I first picked it up, I'm not going to lie, I just thought, I don't understand this. This is too much. It's too much for me. But believe me, once you've mastered the basics of NLP and you understand your submodalities and you understand how to change them, and then you understand about the meta models, then please go in and understand the patterns of change and how to change your patterns, how to change your way of thinking. And I've learned that there are 4 realities. It's called the 4 realities models, 4 specific ways of thinking, and I've written this down. It's all a bit scribbly, but basically there are 4 different ways of thinking, and that's unitary, sensory, mythic, and social. And where you can see 1 at the top and many, that means that if you're unitary, you seek out truths, and you're quite factual, you're quite black and white, and you're quite determined, which is why it says determined next to it. If you are SE, sensory, you're more facts and logic, and you could be around many people to make sense of that. And then if you go down where it says SO, social, you're more about your values and your feelings. And then to the left of that, there's mythic, which is more about ideas and metaphors. The creativity people, they're more free will. Okay, now there's 3 different levels to this, which is why there's 3 different diagrams. The 3 different levels are your spirit, your mind, and your body. Okay, so your spirit is obviously your higher self and your values and your beliefs. And then your mind and that is our 4 ways of thinking. And then your body, which is obviously your bones, your muscles, your mind, your fibres, your nervous system, everything that goes in with that. So when I was learning this, we call it chunking up and chunking down. And what I mean by that is, I'll just put this bit of paper down just to describe, which you should have already hopefully understand this. But chunking up, you could look at a bicycle and someone might say to you, oh, how does this bicycle work? And you say, oh, it's got 2 tyres and a frame, and you just cycle and off you go. That's what a chunking up person might say. Now, someone who might want that chunking down might say, okay, that's great, but what are the other elements of it? So there's the chain, there's the gears, there's so many different gears, and you're going into more detail, so that's chunking down. And that's so important when you're speaking to clients as well, because you need to know whether you're chunking up or you're chunking down. So for this, the patterns of change, I've had to really chunk it down on this occasion, just to really understand the different areas. So I'm just going to open a page of my book and describe it a little bit better for you. I hope I am making sense. So in the unitary section, let me just hold that up again. The unitary, where it says you, that is the truth, principles and rules. And the motivation behind that is authority. I do what is right. I do what I'm told, and I trust the people who tell me what to do. Okay, and that's why it says 1 above it as well, because like I said, they're usually on their own way of thinking. Now, the next one, which is the SE, facts, details, logic and strategies. And their motivation is logic. I follow procedures, I use strategies that work for me and others. That's the sensory, the SE one at the top there. And then the next one, which is your social, SO, feelings, values and judgment, okay? Values and criteria. So this is the motivation, value and criteria. I need social approval. I want to stay within the norms of my group, my social networks and society. And then we move over to mythic, which is your ideas, creativity and metaphor way of thinking. So the motivation behind that is curiosity. I want to do my own thing. I'm curious about what this would be like, so I create opportunities to find out. Now, the reason why we need to understand this is because we're trying to find out what's right and what's wrong and defining what actually exists. And also, we want to be able to help the client make change the way that they're thinking, yeah? Right? I'm making sense. So at the moment, if I have a client and they're usually talking to me, and I can straight away, I'm using the IQs, and I can see whether they're creating, whether they're accessing memories or they're accessing feelings, which is great because that really helps us, especially when we're creating that rapport. And then we need to make sense of their reality, their map of their specific world. And we do that usually by looking at their values and their beliefs, the way that they were brought up, etc. But once you know the 4 different ways of thinking, this then helps you power up your sessions, because you can then, for example, if you want to change the way that they're thinking, if they are more, let's have a look, they're all about their feelings and their values, and you know they're accessing those quite a lot in the session, and they're not being very factual, and they're not being very logic about what they're saying. So think about what you can do to change that, to make the change in your session, to get them to do that. Now that could be something like goal setting. That's what we do in NLP. We make sure that we goal set and take action. So get them focused on something else. So that shifts that way of thinking. Now, if you've got somebody who is very determined and they sort of work more on their own, they're very black and white, they're more unitary, they're all about truth and rules, this one, what can you do then to loosen them up a little bit, you know, so that they can you can open their map of reality open their world up so that they can start learning new values and beliefs. Well, that's where your meditations come in, that's where your clinical hypnotherapy comes in, that's where you can access the creative part of their mind, the subconscious mind, and you can then give them the suggestions, and you can use some of your neuro-linguistic techniques to really help that change happen. So learning the 4 ways of thinking, in my eyes, is a great tool to have, and it's great to understand that, to help you understand your clients more and to help them with that change. I hope I'm making sense. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll do another one soon.